Normally when you sit down and play a game, there is a fundamental expectation that the rules are actually written down before you roll the dice.
Right. You expect some boundaries.
Yeah.
Like a shared reality.
Exactly. You don't expect the shape of the board to physically morph while the pieces are still moving. But when you look at the global landscape of artificial intelligence over the past 7 days, the board isn't just changing shape.
No, it's total chaos.
It feels like half the players are playing chess, the other half are playing poker, and the referees are actively redesigning the rulebook in real time. So, welcome to the Deep Dive. I'm your resident knowledge geek, always ready to fall down the rabbit hole.
And I'm your analytical voice of reason, hopefully here to help us separate the signal from the noise today.
Yeah, glad you're here. And looking at the data we've gathered for you today, noise might actually be the understatement of the year.
Oh, absolutely.
So just to set the proper context for you, our listener, today is Sunday, July 5th, 2026.
Right. And the intelligence we are synthesizing today covers the data collection period from June 27th to July 4th, 2026.
You are tuned into Macroeconomy AI, and this broadcast is our AI Observatory week of June 27 to July 4th, 2026. Our mission today is to take verified primary sources and, extract the macro trends you actually need to know about.
Yeah, explaining not just what happened, but exactly how and why. And we have some incredible structural shifts to get through.
We really do. We are going to tease apart Washington suddenly reversing these heavy-handed export controls, and then Meta getting caught in a massive undercover benchmarking operation.
Plus a $500 billion physical infrastructure bet in Asia.
Yeah, and hard empirical proof that AI is fundamentally permanently altering entry-level jobs. But before we jump into all those mechanisms, a huge thank you to you, our audience, for joining us.
Definitely.
Today's Deep Dive is sponsored by the Silicon Ledger, which is the premier newsletter for understanding the intersection of tech policy and global finance. They align perfectly with our channel, Macroeconomy AI.
We are dedicated to bringing a compilation of analyses and news on macroeconomics, technology, and artificial intelligence.
Exactly. And the Silicon Ledger helps you stay ahead of the curve, just like we do. You should definitely check them out in the links below.
All right, I think it's time we dive into the actual data, right?
Okay, let's unpack this, starting with the regulatory tug-of-war, because I have to admit, when I first read the headlines about the U.S. government and Anthropic, I was entirely confused by the sheer whiplash.
Yeah, it was a sudden move.
Like, back on June 12th, the U.S. Department of Commerce issued this export control directive. They basically forced Anthropic to shut down global access to their Claude Fable 5 and Mythos 5 models.
Right.
But how does the government even place an export control on code, on math? It's not like they're, stopping cargo ships at a port.
Well, that is the crucial mechanical difference here. Historically, export controls applied to physical goods, right? Like uranium, advanced microchips, aviation parts.
Right, tangible things.
Exactly. Applying them to software models means the government is essentially regulating cloud server access. They are legally restricting cloud providers like Amazon Web Services or Microsoft Azure from serving data to IT addresses outside the country.
Wow.
They're treating the digital computation itself as a restricted physical export. It was a massive flex of state power over digital infrastructure.
Right. But then suddenly, on June 30th, the Department of Commerce just suspends the directive. Just like that. By July 1st, Fable 5 is back online globally.
Yeah, and Anthropic didn't just quietly turn the servers back on.
No. In that exact same cycle, they launched Claude Sonnet 5.
And the timing of that launch, alongside the suspension, is definitely not a coincidence.
Exactly. And they are heavily promoting Sonnet 5 as their most agentic model yet. Now, agentic gets thrown around a lot in these source materials. What does that actually mean for the listener sitting at their desk?
So it's a fundamental shift in how the software operates. Most people are used to a chatbot paradigm. Right?
Yeah, you ask a question, it answers.
Exactly, and then it goes back to sleep. An agentic model doesn't just wait around. It acts as an independent digital agent.
Oh, interesting.
You give it a high-level goal, and it breaks that goal down into subtasks. It opens a digital web browser, navigates different software environments, and executes a multi-step workflow entirely on its own.
Which makes the pricing even more insane. They claim it matches the performance of their flagship Opus 4.8 for coding and knowledge work, but they are pricing Sonnet 5 at $2 per $1 million input tokens.
That's aggressively cheap.
It is. For anyone unfamiliar, a token is roughly 3/4 of a word. So $2 to process 1 million words of input means near-frontier digital intelligence is practically free.
Yeah.
Oh, and alongside all of this, Anthropic suddenly proposed a unified industry standard for jailbreaks alongside Google, Amazon, and Microsoft.
What's fascinating here is the underlying mechanism of this reversal. Because remember, the suspension of the export ban lasted 18 days.
Right, the blackout period.
Yeah. During that blackout, Anthropic claims they developed a new safety classifier in conjunction with the U.S. government. A safety classifier is essentially a secondary AI model that sits on top of the main one, acting like an automated bouncer.
Okay, so what is the bouncer doing?
It analyzes every user prompt in milliseconds to see if someone is trying to trick the system into, say, building a bioweapon or generating malware.
Ah, I see.
So what we are seeing is the real-time negotiation of national security. The government proved it could pull the plug on a frontier model, and the AI labs responded by instantly forming a coalition to self-regulate.
Basically saying, look, we can manage our own security parameters. Don't shut us down.
Exactly.
It's incredible. But the timeline on the European law actually looks completely contradictory until you look closer. Europe is handling this with a totally different mechanism, aren't they?
Oh, it is a night and day difference. While the U.S. relies on corporate negotiation and, sudden unilateral executive actions, the EU Council just gave final approval to the digital omnibus on AI.
Right, the big regulatory package.
Yeah, it simplifies their massive AI act. And the timeline split is the crucial calculated part to understand here.
Break that down, because at first glance, it looks like they are delaying the most important safety rules.
Well, for high-risk AI systems, think autonomous infrastructure or AI embedded in medical devices, they've actually delayed the compliance deadlines to late 2027 and August 2028 for embedded systems.
Wait, why delay the high-risk stuff?
They're doing this because physical supply chains simply cannot adapt that quickly. If you force an immediate change to software running a power grid, you risk breaking the grid.
That makes sense.
But they enacted a strict, immediate ban on AI-generated non-consensual sexual content and child sexual abuse material, or CSAM. That ban goes into effect in December 2026.
Okay, so the mechanism is separating bureaucratic compliance from immediate, demonstrable societal harm.
Exactly.
If you're building software to run physical infrastructure, you have until 2028 to figure out the massive paperwork load. But if you're building a tool that generates deepfakes, you are cut off immediately.
Precisely. And meanwhile, you have the United Nations trying to bridge this massive gap. On July 1st, the UN and the International Telecommunication Union launched the AI for Good Global Commission in Geneva.
Right, the heavy hitters.
Yeah, they brought together heads of state like Paul Kagame of Rwanda and the president of Estonia, and seated them right next to tech CEOs like Mark Benioff from Salesforce, Jensen Huang from NVIDIA, and Brad Smith from Microsoft.
But is a unified global AI policy actually a pipe dream? Because when I look at this, the UN's inability to establish a unified global rulebook is it's creating a massive regulatory vacuum.
It definitely is.
In Europe, they have heavy legislation. In the US, they have ad hoc enforcement. And China operates on a completely different state-directed paradigm. It's like trying to play a global game of chess where every country is using completely different rules for how the pieces move.
It might be a pipe dream to have one single rulebook.
Yeah.
But the fact that they brought 11,000 participants from 169 countries to Geneva shows the deep anxiety regarding this fragmentation.
There were
Very. The UN is desperately trying to create a single table where heads of state and tech billionaires can at least establish a shared baseline vocabulary for safety.
Right, but while the politicians are talking in Geneva, the corporations aren't waiting. They are actively exploiting that regulatory vacuum by making themselves indispensable to the state.
Oh, absolutely.
Let's look at California. Governor Gavin Newsom just announced an unprecedented partnership with Anthropic. They are putting the Claude assistant into every single state agency.
Every single one.
Yeah, we're talking the DMV, the Department of Health Services, and Anthropic is doing this with a massive 50% discount on the commercial price, and they're throwing in free workforce training.
Well, think about why a company would offer a 50% discount to one of the largest economies in the world.
Right. Why take the hit?
Because if Claude becomes the digital backbone of the California DMV and the state health services, Anthropic fundamentally shifts from being a software vendor to being critical civic infrastructure.
It is a brilliant defensive mechanism against future regulation. Here's where it gets really interesting. I saw this headline, and I honestly thought it was a typo. The Financial Times reported, and this was widely replicated across global markets by July 2nd, that Sam Altman has proposed donating 5% of OpenAI's equity to a U.S. sovereign wealth fund.
That's a massive amount of equity.
It is. Based on OpenAI's $852 billion valuation, 5% is roughly $42.6 billion. At first glance, that sounds like pure philanthropy. But what is the actual strategic mechanism here? I mean, nobody just gives away $42 billion.
No, they don't. We have to analyze the immediate context surrounding this proposal.
Yes, and we need to be strictly impartial here about the sequence of events. This proposal comes out just days after the U.S. government formally asked OpenAI to delay the public launch of their newest model, GPT 5.6.
Right.
And this also follows months of ongoing negotiations about potential state participation in the company. So what's the play?
That context reveals the mechanics of the strategy. Altman is reportedly pitching this as a way to share the financial gains of AI with the American public. It's heavily inspired by how the Alaska Permanent Fund pays out oil revenues to its citizens.
Interesting.
And he is also actively urging Google, Meta, and Anthropic to do the exact same thing. From an analytical perspective, this is a masterstroke of positioning through entanglement.
Entanglement, right.
By offering to become a financial pillar for a national sovereign wealth fund, AI labs align their success directly with the financial health of the state itself.
I see. If the U.S. government effectively owns 5% of your company and relies on that revenue to fund public initiatives, they are heavily disincentivized from ever regulating you out of business.
Exactly. It's a strategy of total entanglement. You make your corporate survival essential to the state's financial survival.
Now, this software strategy inevitably leads to the hardware bottleneck. If you, the listener, are wondering why your company's enterprise AI licenses are so incredibly expensive right now, it all traces back to this global race for physical compute power. Yeah.
And South Korea just dropped a bomb on the hardware market.
The geopolitical hardware race is the physical foundation that all of this digital strategy rests on.
It is. South Korean President Lee Jae-young announced a mega project investment, 800 trillion won. That translates to $517.9 billion.
$500 billion.
Yeah. This is capital from Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix, heavily backed by the state, going straight into memory chips, massive data centers, and what they're calling physical AI.
That term, physical AI, is vital to grasp here. They aren't just building traditional data centers to process chatbot queries.
What are they building?
They are building the specialized silicon infrastructure required for robotics and automated manufacturing. They are creating the chips that will allow digital intelligence to actually walk around and operate in the physical world.
Wow.
They want to completely own that hardware layer.
Now, to maintain our impartial reporting, we must highlight the intense domestic controversy surrounding this announcement. These massive new factory complexes are slated to be built in the southwest region of South Korea. Right. Which has caused a stir.
Huge stir. The political opposition is heavily criticizing the project, claiming the location choice is purely politically motivated because the Southwest is the president's traditional electoral stronghold.
And the government's response?
The government entirely rejects that accusation. They state the location was chosen strictly based on logistical and strategic merit regarding power grids and water supply.
Well, regardless of the internal political disputes over zoning, injecting $500 billion into the ecosystem fundamentally shifts the global center of gravity for semiconductor manufacturing.
It absolutely does. But, while South Korea is building physical factories in the open, Meta is out there engaging in some incredibly shadowy tactics.
Oh, the Wired piece.
Yes. This investigation from Wired magazine, which was also heavily covered by Canaltech in Brazil, it reads like a spy novel. According to the investigation, Meta hired a contracting firm called Covalin. Their job was to create thousands of fake accounts posing specifically as users under 18 years old.
And we must be clear. The purpose of these fake accounts was not for their own internal safety testing.
No. They used these fake teenage personas to interact with rival chatbots, specifically OpenAI's ChatGPT and Google's Gemini. And they were actively testing them on highly sensitive topics, including suicide prompts and self-harm.
That's intense.
The scale was massive. Just in the month of August 2025 alone, this operation, which they internally called Project Ken, generated over 45,000 interactions with competing bots. My question is, how do you even generate 45,000 interactions in a month? Did they just hire an army of contractors to type manually?
No, this is where we see the modern mechanism of digital corporate espionage. Because traditional benchmarking takes far too long, they automate the probing.
So they're bots.
Yeah, it's like Meta built thousands of automated lockpicks. They likely use their own language models to script these fake personas, automating them via APIs to constantly query Google's and OpenAI's digital safes.
Just to see what happens.
Just to map out exactly where their competitors' safety alarm systems trigger. And none of the competitor companies were informed this was happening on their servers.
So what does this all mean? Meta has come out and publicly stated this is just standard industry safety testing, and they vehemently deny using any of this generated data to train their own core AI models. But is creating automated bots to probe a competitor's safety guardrails legitimate benchmarking, or is this corporate espionage?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it reveals the sheer paranoia driving the ecosystem right now.
Everyone's looking over their shoulder.
Exactly. These laboratories are terrified of falling behind in safety metrics, which are increasingly becoming a massive selling point for enterprise contracts. When the industry is moving at this velocity, traditional benchmarking fails.
You can't just wait for the peer-reviewed paper.
No, you can't just read a competitor's white paper anymore.
Yeah.
So we are seeing the emergence of highly aggressive, ethically gray shadow testing. It highlights the desperation to map out exactly what the competition is capable of before the public finds out.
Let's bring all of this, the global regulations, the half-trillion-dollar bets, the corporate shadow operations, let's bring it straight down to the listener's actual paycheck. Because geopolitics and corporate espionage eventually funnel directly down to the payroll.
They always do.
And the labor data we have this week proves it.
The labor market data compiled over this reporting period is perhaps the most sobering empirical evidence we've seen all year.
A comprehensive report in Fortune analyzed updated data from the Canaries panel. This is a massive joint research effort between the Stanford Digital Economy Lab and the ADP Research Institute.
And this isn't a small sentiment survey, right?
Not at all. They are looking at actual hard payroll data from 4.6 million American workers across 730 different occupations.
That is ground truth economic data. There is no guesswork involved there.
And the reality is harsh. They focused on entry-level workers, specifically the 22 to 25 age bracket, in fields highly exposed to AI integration. Stanford economist Eric Brynjolfsson originally warned about a dip back in 2025, and many analysts thought, it might just be a temporary market correction.
A blip on the radar.
Yeah, but the updated data through April 2026 shows the bleeding hasn't stopped. The contraction of entry-level jobs in these fields has grown by 0.5% every single month. Brynjolfsson stated on the record, "This is no longer a passing phase, it is structural."
This raises an important question, though. Because if entry-level roles in these sectors are bleeding out by 0.5% a month, why haven't the aggregate employment numbers completely collapsed?
Right, the overall numbers aren't falling off a cliff.
Exactly. ADP's chief economist, Neela Richardson, identified the crucial mechanism at play here. We have to differentiate between occupations where AI fully automates tasks and occupations where AI complements human work.
That mechanical distinction changes how we need to view our entire careers.
It really does. If your job consists of routine data processing tasks, that a model like the $2 Sonnet 5 can fully automate that is shrinking.
And fast.
Yeah, particularly at the entry level where those tasks are most common. But in occupations where AI is used as a complementary tool, where it extends the capability of the human worker rather than replacing them, employment is actually growing consistently.
And we got the perfect practical illustration of that complementary tool concept this week from Anthropic. They launched a product called Claude Science, but it's not a new model. It's not a new digital brain.
Exactly. They were very careful with the architecture of this release.
It's essentially a workbench. They layered this highly specialized environment over their existing flagship Opus 4.8 model. It integrates more than 60 different massive scientific databases covering genomics, proteomics, and computational chemistry.
That's huge for research.
It gives researchers flexible access to massive compute power without needing to be software engineers. And to kickstart the ecosystem, they're offering $30,000 ATI grants to 50 scientific projects.
This is the exact manifestation of Richardson's economic dichotomy. Claude Science isn't designed to replace the lead researcher at a pharmaceutical lab.
Right.
It is acting as a massive force multiplier. The human is still directing the inquiry, but the tool is reducing the time required for complex literature reviews and genomic analysis from weeks down to hours.
So, bringing this home to you, the listener, whether you are in tech, finance, or logistics, the real takeaway here isn't a generic AI is going to take your job.
No.
It's that a human utilizing AI is going to take your job if you insist on being the raw processor instead of the director of intelligence. You cannot be the entry-level data parser competing against a model that costs $2 to read 1 million words.
You'll lose that race every time.
Every time. You have to actively position yourself as the scientist using the workbench. You have to orchestrate the intelligence to solve novel problems.
The global market is ruthlessly optimizing out the middle layers of information processing. But simultaneously, it is heavily rewarding those individuals who can navigate these complementary tools to drive actual strategic value.
What a phenomenal week of shifts. We went from the geopolitical regulatory vacuum in Geneva to the U.S. Commerce Department flexing on cloud servers to $500 billion in physical silicon, down to a 0.5% monthly drop in entry-level jobs that is permanently reshaping how we start our careers.
It is an immense amount of structural change to process.
It really is.
It is the sheer velocity of that change that is most striking to me. Every single layer of society, from the state down to the individual worker, is being forced to adapt to these new mechanisms simultaneously.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a thought to mull over, specifically building on that Stanford labor data. If tools like Sonnet 5 are systematically automating away the easily defined, routine entry-level tasks, the exact tasks that 22 to 25-year-olds have historically used for decades to learn the ropes of their industry, where will the next generation of senior experts and leaders come from?
That's the real paradox.
Right. If the machine does all the grunt work of the apprenticeship phase, how does a human ever actually become a master? It's a paradox we are going to have to solve quickly as we navigate this new landscape.
All right, disclaimer time. This content is exclusively informative and educational, compiling public market data, projections, and analyses. The material expresses no ideological bias and does not constitute investment recommendation, financial, legal, or tax advice of any nature.
Always crucial to keep in mind, especially with this much capital moving around.
Absolutely. Economic and technological projections are subject to frequent revisions in light of new data and market facts. Likewise, past performance does not guarantee future returns. The goal of this space is to introduce concepts and stimulate academic and professional debate. Strategic, financial, or asset decisions require in-depth and personalized analysis, so always consult qualified professionals and experts before making your decisions.
That was today's Macroeconomy AI. We'll leave it here. You all stay well and keep an eye out for our new broadcasts. Subscribe to our channel, access the links, and follow Macroeconomy AI on social media.
Bye!